I'm Chase Hughes, and that's Bijan Todd. And on today's episode of Off the Bench, we've got an extended interview with Wizards wing Corey Kispert. We've got the first installment of a new game called NBA Knockout with the great Drew Gooden as our first contestant. And you'll also hear a really cool and detailed breakdown of rookie Will Riley's game from a recent one-on-one interview I had with CJ McCollum. And before we get to all that, we'll dive into what we've seen from Kyshawn George so far during his very impressive start to the season. But first, Bijan, I need you to do me a favor. Are you on a computer right now?
I'm loaded up, ready to go.
Do you know how to use Google?
I've done it once or twice, yeah.
All right, go to Tristan Vukcevic's basketball reference page. All right?
I think it's already in my history. I can pull this up right now.
Go there and tell me what you see under the nickname section.
Oh, I see it. You're so proud of this, aren't you? You got the tricky nickname on there. You pulled some strings, didn't you?
I got it done.
He has connections, people. If you didn't know, Chase has connections around the basketball industry. You know what? I'm going to follow this up. I'm going to go to Corey Kispert's page since we're about to interview him and see if the Crispy is not on there for Corey Kispert. Crispy needs to be on there if Tricky's on there for Tristan.
That is a great call. Maybe we can make that a mission of the show to get Crispy on there, because we all know Corey Kispert gets crispy. When we're on like press row and he makes a couple threes in a row, we all say it. So crispy. Yeah.
And if they put like the anomaly on there for Jason Tatum, I think this'll slide.
Is that actually on there?
I'm pretty well now that I'm on Basketball Reference.
Yeah.
It was for a while because it was like a meme at the end of last season, but let me see.
Well, while you look that up,
yeah, it is on there.
It's okay. On there. Wow. That's an unusual one for sure. Speaking of calling shots, how about my pick for breakout player this season, Kyshawn George? He's had an unreal start to the year, especially with his first two games. 21 points, 9 boards, and 2 blocks against the Bucks, and then he follows that up with an all-timer against the Mavs. 34 points, 11 rebounds, 4 assists, 3 blocks, 2 steals. He made 7 threes. No one has ever had at least those numbers in a game. I got that stat thanks to StatHead and Basketball Reference. Little callback there. And I uncovered a few other stats from that game that went viral. So at 21 years old, he is the youngest player in franchise history to begin a season with consecutive 20-point games. He passed the great Phil Chenier by about a month. And then he became just the third player in NBA history, age 21 or younger, to have at least 30 points, 10 rebounds, 5 threes, 2 blocks, and 2 steals. The other two were Victor Wembanyama, you might have heard of him, and Luka Doncic, you might have heard of him. Decent company, I'd say. And Bijan, since that game, I keep getting the same question asked by members of my family and also by my friends in various group chats. And that question is, who is this Swiss guy? So, Bijan, I'll ask you that question. Who is this Swiss guy?
This Swiss guy could end up being, don't want to get too far ahead of myself, but he could end up being one of the Wizards' main, not just wing players, but ball handlers moving forward. Obviously, it's a small sample size. He was really good in his rookie year. I thought he deserved all rookie second team. Didn't make it. He just missed the cut. 4 games, into his second year, he's already proving why he deserved to go higher in the draft than he did. Like, he brings up the ball fluidly. He's really efficient from outside. He's an intentional mover without the ball. And actually, when I went over his college tape in Miami, one thing that I noticed was that he kind of like drifts on the court. He doesn't really, or he used to not really like move with a purpose. Now he's doing that. He's an amazing off-ball mover. He's a really good defender, connective passer. This Swiss guy could be a problem. That's my answer.
Yeah, there's not a whole lot of holes in his game either, playing off the Swiss reference there. But, it's going to be fascinating to watch going forward. The Wizards are about to play some really good teams, really good defenses, and I've seen it in basketball. I've seen it in other sports. Young guy has some success. Film gets out. We see it with quarterbacks in the NFL all the time. Teams are going to hunker down in that film room and figure out how to take away your strengths. Then it comes down to counters. And counters after the counters. You got to try to stay ahead of other teams when you rise up that scouting report. So that's going to be fascinating to watch for Kyshawn George as he continues to grow as a young player. All right, I mentioned we talked to Corey Kispert. So let's hear that interview here in a moment. We sat down with Corey to talk about a bunch of cool stuff, some of it basketball and Wizards related. I asked him to list the funniest teammates he's ever had, why the new chairs on the Wizards bench are actually pretty important, more important than you might think. And he also gave a really detailed answer on how he watches his diet as an NBA player and where Italian subs fit into that equation. So, Bijan, before we toss to the Corey Kispert interview, what were some highlights from it for you?
For me, it was just this one question I asked him about his connection to John Stockton, because John Stockton's obviously a big like Pacific Northwest area guy, huge connection to that area and the people who come out of that area basketball wise, and Corey's known him for years. Corey talking about his connection to John Stockton and specifically the solo workouts he did with John Stockton is hilarious. I promise you guys are going to want to hear what he has to say about that, because it's a story and a quote specifically that I'm going to wait until after you guys hear it that I think is pretty hilarious.
I'm going to go ahead and guess that you don't remember watching John Stockton play. You're too young.
I don't remember him playing, but when I was a kid, I was big on watching NBA TV when I would get home from school, and they would always play those classic games of the Jazz with him and Karl Malone. So I did watch him when I was young, just not live.
There you go. Yeah, he was quite a player. And if you look at the record books, that's proof of that. All right, without further ado, here's our conversation with Corey Kispert. All right, we're pleased to be joined on Off the Bench by Wizard sharpshooter Corey Kispert, who is entering his fifth season in Washington, which is kind of amazing. And Corey, first of all, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks, boys. Thanks for having me. Yeah, 5 years is incredible, and it doesn't get any weirder to say that the more I say it. Feels like I was a rookie like yesterday.
Yeah, man. So we'll start with some basketball questions and then get into some fun topics. But let's begin with how this offseason, the NBA changed how stats are counted when it comes to heave attempts. Basically, threes taken beyond the half court line that often take place at the end of quarters, of course. But the reason why I asked about it is because you led the team in heave attempts last year. You had 5 of them. And that actually tied you for the most that any Wizards player has attempted in a single season in the last 5 years. So, as we all know, like not many players were willing to even take them because it used to hurt their shooting percentage. Now it doesn't. So, for someone who that might directly affect, are you happy about this rule change?
Yeah, so this is a deeper question than you think it is. For me, like number one, I shoot enough three-pointers where 5 heaves at the end of a quarter doesn't really do much to my shooting percentage throughout the course of the year. That's just a numbers thing. But I was taught by a coach early on. Do you remember Ryan Richmond, the coach?
Oh, yeah, of course.
Happy to be here. I was taught by him that if you have a chance to shoot an end of the quarter, end of the half shot, a heave, no matter how far it is, you always take it. Like that's the winning basketball thing to do. And so, because, even if you miss 199 out of 200, maybe that 200th shot that you make is gonna like, if you win a game by 2, that's the difference. And so like you always shoot that shot. And so as a pet peeve of mine that if people don't shoot it because they don't want to mess up their percentage. I'm like, no, we're trying to win the game here. You need to shoot that shot because you never know what could happen. And you guys have been around our team enough after practices, especially this year, that you see guys chucking up half quarters all the time. So I think people are better at that shot than they think they are. And I think it's a waste, but in reality, that could mean, the difference between winning and losing a game. So winners shoot that shot. And so I'm proud of that stat that I led the team in half court or beyond heaves last year.
Corey, as Chase mentioned, we're going to be bouncing around a bunch of different topics on this one, and I want to take it back to your youth days when you first started playing basketball, maybe in high school, to that era as well. When did it first start clicking for you where you were like, I'm better than pretty much everyone I play against? And when did you first start to think, oh, I could go to college, I could go pro maybe? When did that start clicking in your head?
Yeah, so I mean, like it clicked pretty early on specifically that I was like, I can really shoot the ball. And that was like that was my game forever. Like just stand and shoot it every time. And like don't move at all, don't dribble, like just shoot. And like obviously as I got better and older, that game started to evolve. But that's kind of where like the love of basketball and like that little dopamine hit that happens every time you make a shot kind of carried me into wanting to improve the game more. In high school, I would probably say I knew I had a chance at making it to college. I mean, that one was a little quicker. I got my first offer as a freshman. So like as at 14 years old, I was inserted into that world. And that felt really crazy to me at that point. But I was kind of forced to think that way. If I wanted to like take basketball really seriously and like devote a bunch of time and effort and energy to it. The crazy one was college. I did not have a very good first 2 years of college. I didn't play to my potential. I had some like roadblocks and injuries and a bunch of stuff happened my first 2 years in college, and had a bunch of people like, mentioning to me like, you're a really good player in Europe. You have a professional career ahead of you. That's not knocking on the quality of players in Europe, but like obviously as a college athlete, that's not something you want to necessarily hear and shoot your sights towards. But then, I had a really, really good junior year, and something clicked between then, my sophomore year, and my junior year. And so maybe 2 years before I made the NBA became a possibility in my brain. So, I would be lying to you if I said that playing in the NBA was a achievable dream of mine for a vast majority of my life. It was a reality that I had to start taking seriously and adjust to, pretty late in my career.
I'm curious, as you track your own like individual progress, like how deep into the numbers do you get? Like, I'm not saying like, your scoring average, obviously, you're worried more about the team and the team success. But like when you kind of track your development stuff you worked on in the off season, like how deep into the numbers do you get?
I get pretty deep into the numbers. That's carried me and to where I am in my career now. As you get better, the amount that you can improve gets smaller and smaller. The margins are just that thin. And so any sort of advantage you can gain through like utilizing stats and all of the amazing people that work here in our organization that track that stuff is, like of the utmost importance. So, um, yeah, I mean, that even started playing in college when I made that big jump, like being able to lock in on what I was really, really good at and what could get me further, rather than just kind of trying to paint over my summers with a broad brush and hoping something stuck. Allowed me to kind of get better year after year, and then finally have that breakthrough that led me here. And it's kind of gotten to a point now where, if it's not broke, don't fix it. And everyone knows how statistical and analytical the NBA is. And people get mad at that a lot, but the reality is like the numbers often don't lie. And you might not like the way it looks, for a general basketball viewing standpoint. That's a whole different conversation. But like for me as a player, um, you have to care about that stuff because that's kind of what gets you better. And oftentimes the opportunities to just become a brand new player and change everything don't happen for everybody. And so you have to get better in the margins in order to make tangible changes on the court.
Corey, one of the coolest things about your lore, if you can call it that, is I believe you have a pretty deep connection to John Stockton and the
Yep.
Stockton family.
Mhm.
So, part one of the question is, how did that relationship develop? And part two is, what did you learn just being around one of the best point guards, one of the best players in NBA history? What did he teach you?
Yeah. So how that began, his son David played at Gonzaga a couple years before, like his career ended at Gonzaga a couple years before I got there. And the Stocktons are crawling all around Spokane. Always have been, always will be. And his daughter played with my wife. I played pickup with all of his sons throughout the summers, and that's kind of where the relationship began. He owns a gym in Spokane, and every summer we would practice in the morning and then head over to John's gym and play pickup with, guys who are, not on the team anymore and play in different places and come back during the summer. And there were actually like really high level runs. And anybody that knows John or has played against John, the immediate thing that they would tell you, the first thing would be how competitive and borderline dirty John was as a player. And he takes pride in that. And you can see that through the way that he operates his gym and operates his pickup runs. Like the moment that things start getting nasty and bad, he will walk on the court and grab the ball and turn the lights out and leave. Like that's, or he even plays like when I was in college, he was in his late 50s, and every Sunday he would lace him up and play still. And like you can still see he obviously has lost a step, and he wasn't, he's not the athlete that he was, but like the brain is still working and the way that he sees the game is still working. And then it got to the point when I would show up enough to those, weekly runs and even the Sunday ones where the players weren't even supposed to be there. Um, like individual workouts with John started to evolve, and I would get in workouts with his son David and John. And obviously David's a point guard and I'm not, but there's stuff that I can learn from somebody like that. The way that he throws passes, the spin that he puts on the ball, what he sees, how he manipulates the defense before he even gets into the action he's trying to run, like little things like that that separated him from, being a below average athlete, to the Hall of Fame, assist steal leader by a wide margin that he turned into. is like you'd have to be an idiot to pass up on any knowledge from a guy like that.
Individual workouts with John Stockton sounds insane. Like, would he like run you ragged in those
He would
workouts?
run you ragged. Yeah. Yeah. The first thing is he would tell you is when you walk into the gym, we would get started immediately. Like there was no like get shots up, get warm, get loose, stretch. He would say that like he would ask me if you have ever if I had ever seen a dog bend over and touch its toes before running after a car, and I would say no, and he's like, okay, well you shouldn't do it. Like, let's go. That's kind of the way he thought. There's no BS. There's no fluff. Like it's just about playing the game the right way and like getting results. And while I do in like need to warm up before I play in games now, like that like kind of hard-nosed, gritty, like results based, like no fluff, like this is what it is. Is another thing that I've learned from John. That's carried me a long way for sure.
There must be something about that generation. My dad plays tennis at a pretty high level in his 70s. Never stretches, not once. Never seen him stretch. Never seen him put sunblock
Yeah,
on
I
either.
don't
But
see a dog
yeah,
doesn't play.
um,
No, why would I?
yeah. So I have a furniture related question for you. We got to see the new Capital One Arena after the first phase of renovations, and I noticed you guys have new seats on the bench. They raise, they lower. I'm told they're heated. And when I put a photo out on social media, I included in the caption that I had heard from some NBA players before how the height of a bench chair can actually matter. If it's a little off, then it can prevent you from staying loose before you go back in a game. And it kind of makes sense. NBA teams have guys who are 6'2", 7'2". There's not going to be a chair that is one size fits all. So it's time to reveal one of my sources for that report, and it was one Corey Kispert. So as a guy who has had some opinions previously about NBA bench chair height, your thoughts on the new seats at Capital One Arena, which, by the way, are only on the home bench, not on the visitors' side.
Yeah, a very, very important detail. There are plenty of other organizations, if you pay close enough attention, that have those seats already, and specifically one being Cleveland. And Cleveland also has a raised floor. So like the main arena floor is, with that rubber material, and then the floor sits about, 6 inches off the ground. And the chairs are not on the floor, they're on that bottom level. So not only are you sitting in a regular chair, you're also in a deficit of 6 inches in that chair. So I mean, my knees are in my chest. It's hard to get really comfortable. It's like sitting on a long flight with, your knees jammed into the seat in front of you. So, and they have those raised seats on their side too. Like everything from like the heated back and heated seats are like really important, and the adjustable part is important too. Yeah, I prefer a higher seat. I prefer to have my legs stretched out, and any advantage that we can get over the opposing team by having it on our side and not having it on their side is a win in my book.
We began this interview by mentioning that you're going into your fifth year, which is insane, as we said. Take me back to your rookie year, first game or first handful of games that you played in. What was your welcome to the NBA moment where you were like, okay, this is insane?
Yeah, I got a chance to meet. I mean, it has nothing to do with basketball, to be honest with you. I had a chance to meet two pretty high level celebrities that were sitting courtside at our games. One being Floyd Mayweather in New York, and the other being Drake in Toronto. The just the fact that those guys care enough about the sport we play and sit courtside, like at our games, like made me feel like these games were a little bit more important than anything I'd ever done before, and kind of put added pressure on it. I mean, like the big fur coats and the chains and like the entourage around them, like you just kind of felt that energy. Luckily, I got a favorable. I was on Floyd's side. Apparently I won him some cash while I played at Gonzaga. He had some bets on our team that I helped him win, and so he was a big fan of mine, and that gave me all the confidence in the world. I had a pretty good game that game, and like second or third preseason game of my career. So, yeah, it had really the very first welcome to the NBA moment was just the people surrounding the game and not really the game itself.
So this being your fifth season with the Wizards and the roster's turned over quite a bit, you've had a lot of teammates here already. Who stands out as like the funniest teammate you've ever had on the Wizards?
Wow, there's been a lot. Man, funny for different reasons. Like I mean, just childish funny. Like Will Barton sticks out. Denny Avdia sticks out. Jordan Poole sticks out. Like those guys are just like kind of classic class clown funny. But then you have a different category of like dry, sneaky humor that like if you only really get if you're paying attention, and like Davis Bertans sticks out in that category. Malcolm Brogdon is in that category as well. Like there's just different kinds of funny, and like that's the luxury that comes with playing with so many different people is you get a taste of each person's personality. And yes, there's been a ton of teammates and there's been a lot of people that I've gotten the pleasure to meet, and all kind of, I mean, those guys like pop into my head for different reasons and different kinds of funny, if that makes sense.
Who did you idolize growing up playing the game of basketball? And then when you got to the NBA, did you ever get a chance to go up against that person?
No, I mean, no. Growing up, I idolized Ray Allen. Um, Seattle Sonics legend. That was kind of, and I got a pleasure of seeing him like, before he turned into the Ray Allen that everyone kind of seems to know now of this, like the sharpshooter. He could do everything when he played in Seattle. I mean, he was dunking on dudes, he was playing in the pick and roll, he was shooting it still. Um, and he was there for the latter part of the Sonics existence. And so I got really close to watching Ray Allen. I really enjoyed watching him play. And then the organization left and it ripped my heart out. So he will always have a soft spot in my heart for what he did for the city and what he did for my team. But obviously he was retired by the time I got into the league. So never got a chance to play against him.
Mhm.
Corey, you and I have both talked about how much we like the Italian store and the Italian subs they have there. Of course, there's a Gonzaga connection, and my neighbors who were part of the ownership group will be very happy about that plug. But I can eat Italian subs all the time. I'm not a professional athlete. You can't really subsist on that type of diet. So, like, what does an NBA player's diet have to be? Like, how strict do you have to watch what you eat?
Yeah, I mean, thankfully we play a sport that requires you to be burning calories all the time, and you never really get rest or a day off. So like the diet consists of like the main things are like stuff that's like anti-inflammatory, like doing everything you can to like flush inflammation out of your body to prevent injuries and prevent, nagging kind of like like that heavy legs feeling, that like kind of nagging knee or like sore joint feeling, like that's the stuff that you really want to lock in and focus on. For me, it's just like taking out as much crap as possible. I mean, other when I don't go to the Italian store to pick up a Milano and a slice of pizza, um, like I cook all my stuff at home, and we take really good care of where this stuff comes from, and the way it's made and the process which it goes into it. And the fact that we're like cooking it in our own kitchen, kind of controlling as many variables as possible is important. And the large credit for that way of living is through my wife. Like we kind of make that a point to do that together. And um, it's something that I now really enjoy is cooking. And so it also saves me money on the DoorDash bill, and it also saves my body some miles and some fatigue along the way.
You guys are talking about food. I'm having my parents over. I'm making a pot roast tomorrow night, so I'm very excited about that.
Enjoy.
Um,
Well done.
Corey, speaking of consumption, you, I believe, are the biggest coffee psychopath I've ever encountered. You drink more coffee than any person, and that's a compliment, of course. The news that you broke to Chase and I yesterday, I believe, or maybe a couple days ago, is that you're starting your own coffee company.
Mhm.
So tell us about that, how'd that start, and how that's going.
Yeah, that's been something that's been on the back burner for a minute. People always ask you when you get into the NBA, like, what do you do outside of basketball to fill your time? And I mean, we make a big deal about that with Trey this year because of his draft interview, like, oh, basketball is my only hobby. And if that's the case, that's going to burn you out for over the long period of time. And so like coffee has been something that I've been into for a long time, and being able to have the focus and energy and time to like create my own business around it was something that really wasn't tangible while I was trying to get my footing in the league and like stick. I just feel like now I have been afforded that opportunity. And so like now I can kind of make that vision come to life. The company is called Bitter Truth. It's going to launch right around New Year's. The site will be live for people to order coffee beans from. And it's a not only a reflection of what I love to drink, which is coffee and a lot of it, but also it kind of has a twist on like and like an angle towards like the way I live my life and kind of the standards that I hold and kind of what I believe to be true. And it's been really exciting. I have a roaster that's doing all the roasting out of Spokane, so that's the Gonzaga connection as well. He's a big Zag fan, and that's how we got connected. And then a lot of really good people in my corner, whether it's friends helping me out with, advertising and design and social media, um, to like friends and family taste testing and designing the bags and things like that. So it's been kind of a close to home operation in every regard, and I'm really excited to get this thing going.
That's awesome. Remind me and tell fans who aren't aware just how much coffee you drink in a given day and what your coffee routine is like on a game day.
Yeah, so like you take today, which was a practice day, for example. I've had now probably 4 cups. It is about 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And I'll cut it out, or if I want to have a decaf later, I'll do it. But the caffeine usually stops around 2 or 3 p.m. So like think like 4 cups between when I wake up and 2 p.m. Unless I'm playing a game. And the coffee will happen after I wake up from my pregame nap, around like 2:30, 3 o'clock. Um, and then, I'll have one then. And then I always take a shot of espresso before I go out on the court. So like that's, now we're talking like 5, 6 cups throughout the course of the day. And thank God that I'm starting a business surrounding that because it's been a part of my life for a long time. And being from Seattle as well, like I feel like now if I cut myself, like I would bleed coffee. Uh, so it's been a big part of my life for a while, and yeah, I drink a ton of it.
That's a ridiculous coffee regimen. I personally am not a huge coffee guy, but like everyone I tell that to always says the same thing. They always say, "Wait till you have kids, then you're gonna need coffee to literally survive." So at some point, I'm definitely gonna hit you up for some of those beans.
Yeah, no, I'm just getting ahead of it. I don't no kids yet, but I'm getting ahead of the routine for now.
That's right. Well, Corey, we really appreciate it. You taking the time out of your day. We're really excited to see what you and the Wizards do this year, and we'll definitely be buying some of your beans down the line. So thanks for joining us, man.
Yeah, much appreciated. Thank you for your business. Thank you for your time, boys. I appreciate it.
Man, that was great stuff. First of all, I'm not surprised at some of the names that he mentioned for funniest teammate. Like Denny Avdia was hilarious. We could all see that. Will Barton was a good call too. Like he was a very witty guy, very quick. Davis Bertans, I found that to be a bit surprising. And also your question about John Stockton, his line from John Stockton, the quote about how a dog never stretches before running after a car was incredible. I might have
That
to
was
use
hilarious.
that.
That was
Yeah.
like the funniest line I've heard from an old NBA player, like an old head or an unk, if you will, in a
Yeah.
long time. Like that is so, and that's also such a boomer thing. Like I'm not gonna stretch. I'm just gonna start running full speed. My body will be fine. They're just built different. Like you
Exactly.
said in the interview, you're like those guys are just built different.
Yeah. So obviously we shouted out the Italian store in that interview. And Bijan, you and I, we both love food and we both love going out to restaurants. So I think we kind of know ball when it comes to the DC food scene. And I'm wondering if maybe we need to make that a running thing where like we shout out a restaurant at the end of the episode.
I'm down.
So
You and I actually we agree on I would say like 80% of our food takes when it comes to DC. There are some establishments that we don't agree on. I'm not going to get into it right now because I don't want to speak ill of any DC establishments because I do love like 99% of restaurants in the area, but you and I are pretty yeah, we know ball about food.
yeah, and this is like the best area to live in that regard. I once actually talked to Corey Kispert. We were talking about because he mentioned DoorDash in the interview, and I was like, man, it's incredible just like how many different countries you can order food from within like a 5 mile radius of your house if you live in this area. And
Yeah.
recently, you were telling me about Ivorian food, right?
Yeah, I live. Okay,
Yeah,
this is the first. This is exciting. It's the first food shout out we got on the show. So I live on U Street, right at the corner of U and 13th in DC, and they're one of the
man, you're
best.
you're getting closer and closer to telling people like your exact apartment number.
Pull
You
up. They
should be
can pull
careful
up.
here.
I don't care. No, pull up. We got a basketball court 2 blocks away. If you pull up with a ball and basketball shoes, I literally don't care what time of day or night it is. I will play one on one with you. Anyway, so I live on U Street, and 2 blocks away there's this place called Spicy Water. And Spicy Water used to be a food truck, I believe, in some like food truck festival in DC. They were so popular they got a brick and mortar restaurant on 11th, I think, maybe 10th, and their food is ridiculous.
All right, I wanted to share some quick sound from CJ McCollum on Will Riley. And for context, I asked McCollum for a scouting report on all the rookies, and he was great on all of them. I think at some point I'm going to have to play what he said about Jameer Watkins in particular because it was amazing. And here's what he said has stood out so far about Will Riley.
I think he's got like, some European flair to his game. And by that I mean always in the right spots, great cutter, moves well without the ball, good pivoting for a rookie. Like usually rookies don't pivot well or they play too fast. Good jump shot, always crashes the boards, and he looks really good in 5-on-5. Like he plays really well, moves well, like doesn't look lost, doesn't look uncomfortable, doesn't look scared. So I mean he's got a bright future too.
So my favorite part about that was the insight he had on Will Riley's pivot foot, because it's not something that I think is easy to notice for like the average basketball fan. And after he said it, I started looking for it. And sure enough, I've seen it in a few games. So it's sort of like an Easter egg for Wizards fans to now try to spot in a game. And I love things like that when someone tells you something about a team or about a player or about a game, and it sort of adds structure to what you're seeing on the screen because obviously the game happens so fast. So, Bijan, what has stood out to you so far about Will Riley?
I think CJ hit it on the head with the off-ball movement because the one thing that I've noticed about him is that he moves so fluidly like Kyshawn and intentionally without the ball. And I asked Brian Keefe about this at practice, I think 2 days ago. I was like, Will Riley's a really good off-ball cutter. You know who else is a really good off-ball cutter is Corey Kispert. Have you seen any connection there between the two of them in practice? And he said, well, all of our guys talk to all of our guys about everything. So yes, I have seen that. But getting that tutelage from a guy who has already established himself as a really good cutter as a rookie, I feel like is a really big deal. And it's the cutting number one, which CJ alluded to. And it's also the tough shot making. Like he did it in Vegas at the Summer League. He's done it in the NBA thus far where he had a preseason shot against Jordan Clarkson with like a double crossover spin move, lefty layup. And he
used his pivot foot,
which he uses exactly. He used his pivot foot phenomenally on that play, and it's really something that I think, like you said, is easy to miss if you're watching the NBA. Even if you're a good fan like you and I are, it's easy to miss. But if you notice it and you notice it being used consistently to a player's advantage, it just adds a whole nother layer to their game, and that's what Will Riley is doing. I think it's really impressive.
Absolutely. All right, next up before we run is the first installment of NBA Knockout. It's a new game where we ask people to go through a list of NBA players and pick between two at a time to say who's better, and you go down the list of 20 different players. The first contestant is Drew Gooden, of course, our Wizards TV color analyst and a former NBA player himself. So I chose 20 players from the 2010-2011 NBA season. All right. There's going to be like a specific season for each of these.
And Drew played against most of these dudes, if not
exactly. He was in the league and he's actually friends with some of them. So it got pretty interesting. I think it was a lot of fun. So here it is. All right, Drew Gooden. Who was better, Cuttino Mobley or Luther Head?
Cuttino Mobley.
Cuttino Mobley or Devin Harris?
Cuttino Mobley.
Cuttino Mobley or Gerald Wallace?
Gerald Wallace.
Gerald Wallace or Richard Jefferson?
Richard Jefferson.
Richard Jefferson or J.J. Hickson?
Richard Jefferson.
Richard Jefferson or Jason Terry?
Jason Terry.
Jason Terry or Eric Gordon?
Jason Terry.
Jason Terry or Roy Hibbert?
Jason Terry.
Jason Terry or Antoine Jamison?
Antoine Jamison.
Antoine Jamison or Corey Maggette?
Antoine Jamison.
Antoine Jamison or Sasha Vujacic?
Antoine Jamison.
Antoine Jamison or Danny Granger?
Antoine Jamison.
Antoine Jamison or Rajah Bell?
Antoine Jamison.
Antoine Jamison or Goran Dragic?
Antoine Jamison.
Antoine Jamison or LaMarcus Aldridge?
LaMarcus.
LaMarcus Aldridge or Amari Stoudemire?
Amari.
Amari Stoudemire or Monte Ellis?
Ooh, it's both my boys. Amari. Sorry, Tay.
Amari Stoudemire or Blake Griffin?
Blake Griffin.
Blake Griffin or Drew Gooden?
Blake Griffin. I want that.
So, Bijan, were you surprised by his choice at the end?
Nah, Drew is such a down-to-earth guy. Like he wasn't about to choose. Was it over Amari Stoudemire? Like he's not about to choose himself over any of those guys. Like he's very aware of how good he was as a player, and he was a very good player, Drew Gooden. But like you got a Hall of Famer in there, I think you got to go with the guy who has a jacket on.
We're gonna have Drew Gooden on at some point, and the stories he will tell will be incredible. Trust me, as someone who hangs around him I feel very fortunate to say that. It's crazy. I grew up watching him. Like, the golden age of college basketball for me was the early 2000s. I was a massive Terps fan. You had Maryland and Duke. It was like one of the best rivalries I've ever seen in my life. Kansas had Drew Gooden with Kirk Heinrich and Nick Collison. They were loaded. Roy Williams was the coach. Man, I miss those days. So much has changed in college basketball, but I can't wait to ask Drew about that on this show.
And shout out Drew just for not only doing it, but for just being like a super nice dude. Like,
oh my God.
We work with him. We see him like 3 times a week at Wizards games, just always smiling, always chatting it up with people, just a down to earth dude. So shout out Drew for doing this with us.
Absolutely. And speaking of that game, if you're watching or listening and you have someone you want us to play NBA Knockout with, let us know. You can hit us up on Twitter, on Instagram, on TikTok. I'm at Chase DC Sports. You're at Bijan_Todd, right?
That's right.
Yeah, but that will do it for this episode of Off the Bench. Thanks to Corey Kispert, to CJ McCollum, to Drew, and of course, as always, thanks for watching, everyone.